By delving into the mysteries of the mind and the fabric of existence, we unlock potentials for personal growth, healing, and profound change. This path of discovery not only illuminates the scientific and spiritual dimensions of consciousness, but also empowers us to live with greater awareness, purpose, and harmony. What transformations await you in this journey of understanding? Dr. Tony Nader. Welcome to the fourth session of our special assembly with Dr. Tony Nader. This afternoon, we'll explore the application of the knowledge of consciousness to habit change. We will start with a sneak peek of Dr. Nader's talk on consciousness and habit change from the new Consciousness Applied course. And then we'll dive into the hacks of habit change, an interactive session with all of you connected, including an introduction to the Super Habits program. And after a 5-minute break, we will have a live Q&A session, again with Dr. Nader, during which you are able to submit your own questions. And if anyone in the hall has questions, please write them down and hand them in to the front. Now, we will start our session with a short video of the highlights of Dr. Nader's talk on habit change and consciousness applied. So enjoy.
Welcome, everyone. For those of you who are new to Dr. Nader's work, let me give you a little background on our esteemed speaker. Tony Nader, MD, PhD, is a medical doctor trained at Harvard University. He received his PhD in Brain and Cognitive Sciences from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's a globally recognized expert in the science of consciousness and human development. Dr. Nader leads the global teaching of the Transcendental Meditation and its related programs by 120 nonprofit organizations around the world. More than 10 million people have learned the TM technique, and more than 400 peer-reviewed studies have been published on the health, wellness, and performance-improving benefits of TM. With his expertise in Vedic knowledge and Maharshi Ayurveda gained from years of working directly hand-in-hand with the founder of the TM programs, Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, Dr. Nader has written 5 books on the ancient and modern science of consciousness. In his upcoming book, Consciousness is All There Is, that'll be published by Hay House on August 6, 2024, Dr. Nader examines what scientists call the hard problem of what consciousness is in terms of human physiology, quantum mechanics, and Vedic science. His writings address the relationship between mind and body, consciousness and physiology. As an expert in consciousness from both modern and ancient scientific perspectives, Dr. Nader has been the keynote speaker at professional conferences, universities, and institutions of government, including the British Parliament's House of Commons on introducing yoga and meditation in the National Health Service, Stanford University for a series on hacking consciousness, the All India Ayurvedic Conference, and a conference on consciousness-based leadership co-sponsored by the International Academy of Management. He's also spoken at top corporations such as Google, Cartier, Pacific Life, and Merrill Lynch. A French citizen born and raised in Lebanon, Dr. Nader speaks French, English, and Arabic. And now I turn it over to you, Dr. Nader. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris. It's wonderful to be with everyone on this first webinar. And thank you to all those who are participating and are on this journey of consciousness, journey of life, that we are exploring today from the perspective of habits and how habits build up and how they can help us to achieve our goals, or they can be actually delaying us in a detrimental way. These habits are built in through repetitive activities, and we want to have first a big picture view of our life and where it takes us and our goals in life, because habits are part of behavior. A certain kind of behavior gets repeated. So we want to know, why do we behave? Why do we act? And we want to know, what is our goal? Why we are doing things? It is very interesting in a big picture to see that, of course, we want happiness. We want to flourish in life. We want physical and mental well-being. We want security, to feel secure, that we are not threatened. We, of course, want comfort and growth and success, all of these values, which all actually, as we will see as we go along the journey, get fulfilled through the expansion of our awareness, the expansion of consciousness. Because in the expansion of our awareness, we see more, we understand more, we understand where we are in our journey and where we want to go. And therefore, we also see the possibilities from a broader perspective. That is what is the basic paradigm of consciousness. In any case, all of these values of happiness, flourishing, comfort, etc., are actually experienced through consciousness. Because without consciousness, without awareness, we don't know what we are, who we are, what we are doing, or what is happening to us. And nothing means anything at all to us. So there is no meaning in life. And that is why having the big picture is really important to start with. And then we will go through the specifics of what we need to do. Because if you want to attain the highest goals, let's say enlightenment, fulfillment, fulfilling the whole purpose of life, you have to start with the goals that are available to you and the specific goals and specific actions that help you to make the first steps, the baby steps, we can say, that can become later giant steps towards fulfillment. So you stay with me and see how you can understand personally all the points that will be presented, which means feel connected to them, feel how they purposefully or how they directly or even indirectly influence your personal life and how you see them yourself in your practical personal life. But on the very big picture, let's start to say, when we are talking about goals and habits and action and life, we can ask ourselves, what is the highest goal? Even though this is a very broad and absolute picture, big picture, beyond the relative aspects of our goals of happiness, comfort, well-being, security, ultimately it is to know ourselves. Now, we will not come back to this a lot in this particular webinar, but it is important that we ask this question, because ultimately, what is the purpose of it all? What's the purpose of doing something and succeeding? It has a purpose within itself, but why are we here? What's the meaning of our life? And just to put it in this broad perspective, I want to say to you, based on the research, based on the knowledge from the Veda, from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the experience of life, the analysis of different values from history, from different sages and knowers, that ultimately the whole purpose is to know yourself fully. And that is actually the purpose of manifestation itself, why we are here, what happens that brings us to be existing in this life and to evolve in this life. And this is what the book that is Consciousness is All There Is actually discusses in great detail. And to know thyself, there are two values. There is a small, limited self, which is our qualities, where we are, our looks, our body, our environment, our capacities. And that is one aspect of ourself, which is true, and it's not to be denied or rejected. And there is another aspect of ourself, which is really an unlimited self. If you like to compare it to the ocean, which we often do, there are the waves on the ocean. And so there is one aspect of our reality that is being a wave in the ocean. And there is another aspect of our reality, which is actually knowing and understanding that we are the ocean itself. So the super you, if we have the small limited self and we have the unlimited self, there are two aspects, the wave and the ocean. The super you is the small self plus the unlimited self. So you recognize and acknowledge that you can be a wave in the ocean, appearing as a wave to others, experiencing yourself in some limited forms as having your limited abilities to some extent on the surface value. But then you also know you are the ocean. In the ancient traditions, and the ancient Vedic tradition, this is called Brahmi Chetana, or the consciousness of unity, of wholeness, knowing that you are everything within yourself, which means the ocean that creates the waves, and knowing that you can also be a wave, and knowing that all the other waves are also waves on the surface, but they are also part of the ocean. So what is the small self? The small self, which we recognize, is a bundle of bits of consciousness, we can call them, a bundle of experiences that we have had, experiences that our body has. And since the theme of our paradigm, of our understanding, is that consciousness is all there is, actually every part of our body, every cell of our body, every organ in our body has its own consciousness. It is actually the expression of consciousness. And all of these parts, cells, molecules, atoms, organs, complex structures such as our nervous system, they actually create their own experience of complexity, and they are a set of surface values, if you like, which are in the ocean, and they have a pattern which we call the anatomy of our physiology. And these patterns can function in different way, which means you have a physiology, you have an anatomy, a structure of your nervous system, but sometimes you act as a doctor, sometimes if you are a doctor, sometimes you act as a parent, sometimes if you are a painter, you're acting as a painter, then you drive your car, you're acting as a driver. And so we have these networks in our physiology that are activating different parts of our reality at some time and other parts at other times. And the more you activate one aspect, the more it gets easy to perform in that aspect. We know this, it is obvious when you practice something. We can always say practice makes perfect. And as we will see, in habit formation, when something is repeated many times, it gets easier to do it. And that's why it is actually becoming a motivator to do it again, because it's easy and we like comfort and we like to be on an easy path. And that's how habit actually form. And there is a physiological brain correlate with this reality, where if you analyze the brain, you can see that something that is repeated, the connectedness between the different neurons gets strengthened, and the path is facilitated. And so these are the networks that are within the pattern of our physiology. So our unlimited self, on the other hand, is one unbounded ocean of consciousness, which is pure being, pure consciousness, and what we call the unified field of all the laws of nature. So what is the ultimate realization in life is to know that you are the ocean as well as you are the wave. Now, to know is something that we have to look at a little bit, because it also has an impact on our habits. And what is knowledge? What is experience? How does knowledge come about, and how do we experience things? We think usually there is me, the experiencer, and I'm experiencing the universe. and there are separate values there. But the experience and actually knowledge is the coming together of three aspects: the knower, which means the subject yourself. And in this case, you want to know, where are you in your journey? There is the process of knowing. That means what are the links? What is in the environment? What are the means that connect you to the objects that you are perceiving, that are in the universe, that are in the world, in your environment? And that is the aspect of the known. So there is the knower, the process of knowing, and the known, which is the object of perception. Now, the known is whatever objects come to your attention, but could also be what are the different opportunities that come to you, and what is the goal you want to achieve. So you have a perception of, I want to achieve a certain goal, and that is an object of my perception. But in order to do that, you are the knower, so you have to know where you are and what are your capacities and abilities to achieve what you need to achieve. And you have to know the environment, the means, the possibilities that are there that allow you to achieve a goal. There are three aspects that are very important. We think I can change my habits. It can be quite difficult to change your habit, but it can also be quite easy. And that is why that's why we are having also in the Consciousness Advisor program what we call the Super You habits. And these three areas that we really need to understand in order to start to have control over our habits and make them really work well are first to identify the habits. Obviously, if you want to change something, you have to identify it. You have to know what it is. And this is an area about knowledge, which means to know it. And that part is really, in terms of those ABCs that we have discussed, is related to cognition. And since all of them are related to each other and they reinforce each other in a different ways, then it's important to first go to the highest value of our human ability, which is to be cognizant, to be knowers, to be aware. So first we have to be aware, and it's very important to be aware of the habits that we have, particularly the habits that we want to change, rather than be actually on an automatic way of functioning, where there is something within us that is actually making us work like a machine, in a sense. And you can't believe how much people do things based on an automated system that is set within them that has become like a loop of activity that keeps going on. And they think they are in control of their life, but they're actually just subject to certain subconscious, if you like. Subconscious doesn't mean unconscious. It means a different level of consciousness, a lower level of awareness, where they are just like an automaton, like an automatic functioning, and they can go actually in loops and not able to get out of it. It's like people who, for example, take the phone and check the news 1,000,000 times a day, or go on these different programs and they keep rotating, keep doing this, and then they can't be left alone for a minute and they keep doing that. Or even people who smoke, for example, and it becomes a habit of smoking, which it's very precise, it's very determined, it's amazingly requiring the attention and make it work. On the surface level, even if they know they should stop smoking. So they are on an automatic kind of activity, and their cognitive value, their ability to understand fully what is going on and deal with it properly is not there. Now, this might sound okay, so what to do about it? And that is the important value, is that it's not enough to just know. There are ways to know, there are levels of knowledge, and there are the other values that come into play in order to help us modify our habits and modify our behavior. But it all starts by identifying the habit. And the second aspect, we said there are 3 areas of relevance. The second aspect we want to understand is the motivation for habits. Why habits happen? And at first we can think, well, this is so bad, it must be something wrong, etc. But actually habits build up because there is something positive about them. There is a reward about them. They bring something good to us. But that reward can be maybe you're tired and then you feel you're overwhelmed by something and you want something easy to relax and feel comfort. And this is where the affect comes in, the feelings, the sensations, even physical sensations, or the expectations that become a reward for encouraging us to do something. The problem is that this is usually a short-term reward, short-term, which is immediate satisfaction, without having in view the ultimate goal that we want to achieve, or not even the very highest ultimate goal, but some goal that we want to achieve. Let's say you're a student, you want to study, you want to pass the exam, you want to succeed. You know, that's not the ultimate goal of life, but it is a very important goal on the path to achieving the fullness of life. And therefore, you would want to do that. However, you find yourself procrastinating, you find yourself distracted, and you find yourself seeking short-term immediate satisfaction, be it, you know, maybe drinking, maybe watching TV for long hours, maybe watching your games or playing games or watching what's going on in a loop form, all of these things on your phone, etc. And they bring you actually immediate short-term satisfaction. And if they bring satisfaction immediately, they are encouraging you to repeat them. And when you repeat them, as we said, they form a very interesting loop of encouraging and facilitating the activity. So the activity becomes simpler and as if rewarding on a short-term basis, and therefore it becomes a nice place to go, in a sense, to kind of get into this repetitive behavior. So that can be in itself something nice and positive, but it's only for a short term, and it becomes a bad habit only if it prevents you from achieving your long-term goals. So if you want to be healthy and you want to exercise, which is a longer-term goal, but you feel if you put yourself in the couch and watch TV, then it's more comfortable. There is less exercise, less action to do, and less effort to do. Then you say, well, it is better, I feel okay. So what I'm saying here is that the motivation for habits, even poor habits, is always something that has something good in it. And that's why we don't want to look at it with judgment on the overall level. We want to actually analyze it and understand it. And we want to look at its effect in terms of our long-term goals versus a short-term satisfaction. Because if you have a very negative attitude towards it, there will be a conflict in your mind, because you will feel it is actually helping me to rest, it's enjoyable, and therefore I should, maybe keep doing it. Why not doing it? I have to fight myself, etc. So understanding that ultimately, even those bad habits, they can start with a purpose that is very comfortable and has some positive effect to it. Yet, we have to understand that we can do better, that we can always grow to achieve more. And what is very important is to believe that we can do it, to believe in the change that we can do it. And we will go through that also in some more detail, how we changed habits. And that brings us to the third aspect. So first aspect was identify the habit. Second is understand the motivation behind habits and have kind of a peaceful attitude towards it, whatever, even bad habits, even though we can change them, we have to change them, but we understand why they come, we accept why they come, and therefore we're not angry with ourselves, we don't get that negative attitude, which can create inner conflict. And the third part, which is, of course, very important, is to learn how to change habits. So now we come to action and behavior and how we can change this. Now, to come to the actual mechanisms by which we can change the habits. First, what we have to do is select a habit. Select a habit that is a poor habit or a bad habit that is based on what we just understood and discussed. And also think of a goal, a positive goal that you want to achieve. Because when you change a habit, you want to replace it with something positive. We want to replace it with a habit that allows you to fulfill the goal. So we can start by baby steps, as we say. And one of the first things, again, I am staying on the cognition level, on understanding, on thinking about it. One of the things that is very important to do is to actually realize what a bad habit does to you. Now, we don't want to analyze negativity a lot, but we have to be aware what a bad habit does to you. And you can analyze this in terms of what does it do to you emotionally, so that it might give you short-term superficial satisfaction, but might make you angry, might make you, anxious about the future, might make you upset that you are not fulfilling your goals. And so understand that. Understand what it does to you physically, for example. Is it preventing you from exercising, preventing you from eating properly, from having good habits of hygiene and food and diet, etc.? Think of the health effects of that habit. What does it do to you physically and mentally? What does it do to you socially? Does it prevent you from meeting people you love or being with people you like? What does it do to you in terms of your productivity? Do you have the ability to produce things, and then the habit is preventing you from that? They're limiting your ability to fulfill your long-term goals. And even if, all of this is not there, but it doesn't do anything to you, so it keeps you just flat, like, in the Rajasic thing, then you should see this is a bad habit. So as we're discussing this, every one of us should think of what is a bad habit that they have, what is a poor habit they like to get rid of. And so this is really important in terms of first step to realize what is a bad habit. And take this in a baby step, which means it doesn't have to be some huge thing, just habits that you feel you want to change. Get aware of all these values, and this is very important. The second thing you want to do is to have a proper mindset. And a proper mindset is to believe that you can change. You have to believe you can change. We change all the time anyway, so change is part of life. And we have the ability to change. And we have to take responsibility for change. So we have to feel empowered. Don't blame others. When your consciousness is clearer, you take responsibility. So don't feel like what is the others doing, etc. But in any case, when you analyze your poor habit, just think honestly what part of your poor habit is under your control. And if there's something in your poor habit that is related to others, and you will find that you can be in control. So take awareness in that and believe that you can change, and don't blame others, that you have the problem is because of others. Take the power within yourself and examine what are the benefits of changing the habit, and see from a conviction side, be convinced, convince yourself that it's important that you can make a change and that you can actually make the change, and think of all the good the change of habit can give you. And then instead of thinking about what you want to do, think of how you would want to become. Think of the results of your action. Think of, as we've said, take yourself in time and see yourself achieving those values. It's very important. And then be confident that you can change, remove that belief that it cannot be done, and take time for your response. Keep yourself a distance. So whenever you are finding a trigger in the environment that gets you into the bad habit, take a time to take a distance from it. And in terms of good habits, what is very important oftentimes is to start, decide to start and not go by your moods. Because oftentimes you feel, I'm tired, I can't do this is a big job. Let's say you have a homework to do or something to achieve, and then the starting point is difficult. If you don't go by your mood of I'm tired, I'm this, and decide I'm going to start, and you actually start, you find that it rolls by itself. It goes on by itself, and it becomes something positive and encouraging, and you get reinforced. Particularly if you don't put a huge task in front of you. Let's say instead of working 3 hours or 2 hours, divide it into short periods of time, and that will help you a lot. There is something they call apply temptation bundling, which is temptation bundling combines something that you want to do with something that you need to do. So, for example, personally, I have to be a lot on the phone. And when I don't have to sit in front of the camera, because otherwise I'm sitting all day and it's very unhealthy, I got the habit that whenever I'm on the phone, I walk. So now even in the family, even my children, now they got the habit, then when they are talking on the phone, I can see them walking around like I usually do. So you can connect things like that. You can be watching a movie and you say, okay, when I watch the movie, I'll do a little bit of exercise. So you can do these tricks that help a lot to connect. And one very important aspect is to be accountable, to feel accountable. For example, write your goal on a piece of paper. Write your habit you want to achieve on a piece of paper. Put it somewhere very visible. Or tell your friends about it. Have support from your friends. So they check on you and you check on them. And every day you have this reinforcement and feeling that, okay, I'm taking responsibility, I can do it. And you'll be able to do it much, much easier. So these are some general points, some specific points. And it's very important to remember that we need to maintain it. There is maintenance that is needed. And for that, there is a need for commitment, a need for consistency, as I said, accountability, and to have a momentum. Momentum builds up and gives you strength when you do it, and then you do it again. You have more confidence, and you do it again, and you have more confidence, and that gives momentum and is getting you closer to the goal. So these are some of the points. There is a lot we can do, and there is this amazing course, amazing thing that the Super You Habits offers. And I really strongly encourage you to go through those. Thank you for your listening. Jai Gurudev.
I should add that the talk was an hour and a half and then half an hour discussion. And again, at the beginning, I go through knower, knowing, and known in great detail, and how you can improve the knower, the perception of the knowing and the known through transcending, through going deep within and clarifying the mind and creating that platform that allows us to actually apply these simple tricks that were mentioned. And there are many other small details about these values that are also within the tape, within the discussion.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Dr. Nader, for this inspiring talk and really taste of the new Consciousness Applied course. Now we'll dive into the hacks of habit change, an interactive session again, including an introduction to the Super Habits program by Miriam Lodge, Heather Evans, and Dr. Keith Wallace, along with Dr. Nader, of course. So first, let me introduce you to Heather Evans, who you've already seen briefly in our previous session. Heather Evans spent the first years of her life traveling around with Maharishi, as her parents are TM teachers who worked closely with him. She is a Siddha who became an expert in the personal development and coaching world and has been instrumental in the initial testing and development of the Consciousness Advisor program. She's now helping Dr. Nader to develop transformational personal growth programs like the Super Habits program to bring Maharishi's expansive knowledge to the world. She is an award-winning corporate communications trainer, executive coach, and consultant on human development and change resilience with more than 25 years of experience. She is also the CEO and founder of Pivot Inc., a consulting company focused on developing self-aware, conscious, mindful, and evolved leaders across all generations. She designs and facilitates learning programs for top-level organizations like Booz Allen Hamilton and Google. She is an ICF certified professional coach and a member of Harvard's Institute of Coaching. And in the last 8 months, she was featured twice in Forbes and one of the top executive coaches in the US. So a warm welcome to Heather Evans, along with Miriam Lodge, who will lead us through this next part of Hacks for Habit Change.
Thank you so much, Anna Marijke. And Heather is on Zoom, so you will see her shortly when she starts to speak. I wanted to also make one practical note. When Dr. Nader recorded this first talk in January on habit change, the program was still called Super You Habits. However, we ran into a small trademark issue and we had to change the name, which is why it's called Super Habits now. So that's why you heard Super You Habits in the video. Great, so let's dive right in. Dr. Nader told you about super habits, so we're gonna go a little deeper and tell you what it is all about. And we have a first quote, which is coming up there, which is, successful people simply have successful habits. And this is one of the reasons people look to habit change, is to increase their success, reach the goals they want to reach in their lives. However, there is also a whole different aspects of habits, which is health. By now, scientific research has shown that when we look at 4 of the top health issues the developed world is dealing with, which is cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. All these four have been linked by scientific research, inversely correlated, of course, with good sleep, good exercise, diet, healthy diet, and meditation, of course, transcendental meditation leading the charts there. So for anybody that wants to feel like they're doing whatever they can to live a long and healthy and comfortable life, it is also important to look at those health habits involved. So habits can serve many purposes, and from our side, we want to do whatever we can with any of the goals that people have and come to us with. Now, what we call super habits are habits that help you change other habits. It's the skill of being able to create the habits you want. And what you put your attention on grows, as we heard this morning as well from Maharshi. So if you put your attention on the skills on how to change habits, especially if you do it with expert guidance, and especially if you do it in a group of like-minded people, that in itself is one of the most powerful super habits there is. With that, I'll pass it to Heather.
It's a great joy to be here. Thank you so much, Miriam. We wanted to tell you a little bit about this program and specifically the global experts who have collaborated to bring this 10-week Super Habits program to you. Of course, you know Dr. Tony Nader, for whom we are greatly, deeply grateful for his elaboration on the knowledge of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and who continues this work by bringing consciousness to the forefront of mankind in a profoundly accessible way through programs just like this. Dr. Keith Wallace, also a best-selling author who speaks globally on habit change strategies for healthy living, teaching thousands of people on the subject. His books include Total Brain Coaching, 16 Super Biohacks for Longevity, Self-Empower, and Gut Crisis, among others. He has a PhD from the University of California at Los Angeles and completed his postdoctoral research at Harvard University. I'm also joined by Ted Wallace, who is a coach and behavioral change expert who combines his knowledge on the power of positive habits with years of experience working with some of the largest companies in the United States to drive personal, team, and culture change. And of course, my dear Miriam, who is also a great friend. So it's a beautiful collaboration. We're so grateful to be doing this work in the world. And that's enough about us. We'd love to hear about you. If you would, put in the chat where you're from. We are truly a global, unified community here around the world. And it's such a joy to see the locations pop up. So if you would just pop that in, it's just lovely to be reminded about all the places that we come from to join on this beautiful topic of consciousness and the different ways that we can activate it more deeply within ourselves and within the world. So great joy to see, oh my goodness, Cape Town, we've got South Africa and France, and I see Ottawa, Italy just populating, wonderful, England, Algeria. Welcome. It's so good to be here with you all. So we wanted to share a little bit more deeply about this program that we've created. And here's what you need to know about the essence of what makes this program different than any other personal development program on the market. We incorporate a consciousness-based approach to habit change, meaning participants learn about their consciousness and the evidence-based Maharishi technologies of consciousness that help us develop it. The 10-week program is structured in 3 parts. It's represented here visually as 3 circles. And the first inner circle is focused on understanding you, your unique mind-body type. through the lens of Maharishi Ayurveda, and specifically how this knowledge affects your ability to change habits. Miriam will give you a little sneak peek from our course on this exact topic in just a moment. The second circle is comprised of 3 workshops that are focused on consciousness and continuing to understand more deeply why you want to change and what is holding you back. The third circle is a series of the final 6 workshops that tie all of this together with proven and practical habit change strategies and tools and practices. And in our program, all of this is done in combination with others. So you have an accountability partner, which you can choose, or we'll assign you one if you'd like, a fellow colleague on the 10-week journey, and also a learning circle. So we have groups of about 3 people typically for extra support, and also discussion and integration of the learning from each workshop. So all of this is supported with a personalized habit map, tracking tools, and coaching exercises along the 10 weeks.
Wonderful. And we created this program because research shows that only about 15% of people can read a book or decide to change habits and actually do it. 85% of people need a little help. And so when you look at why it is so hard to change habits, very often it is reasons in our subconsciousness. And we've been talking to many people about habits, and even people that have no specific depth or even interest in consciousness, when you tell them that, yes, habits, the hesitation or the difficulty is in our subconsciousness, everybody completely agrees with that. And as we said this morning, if the issue is at a deeper level of consciousness, then we need to bring solutions that work at a more deeper level of consciousness. We showed the ocean analogy this morning, so normally it's part of this hacks, but we won't repeat it since you already heard it. But it's the same logic. Changing a habit really is like moving an iceberg, and it really is a lot easier if you can move it from all levels at the same time instead of just pushing it from the tippy top of your conscious thinking mind. So fine, we say these technologies of consciousness. What are they then? What does that mean, technology of consciousness? For that, we went back to the oldest and most powerful tradition of consciousness we could find, which is the Vedic tradition of India. And it includes meditation, which some of you are already familiar with. Others might not have any experience with meditation, and that is also completely fine. The program doesn't require any prior experience. It also includes Ayurveda, which many of you might know from Ayurvedic wellness massages or Ayurvedic teas. But actually, Ayurveda is so much more than that. It has incredibly powerful knowledge on many aspects that are really, really helpful for habit change. For example, it has very deep knowledge on the mind-body connection. So let's dive a little deeper into this mind-body connection, because this is very important. The slide is there. So firstly, let's establish the foundation. We all know our mind and our body are connected, right? If we're tired, if our body is tired, our mind doesn't think so clearly anymore. But if we're rested, then suddenly our thinking becomes more clear, etc. Now, how is this relevant for habit change? Most of us think of habit change as a mental process, and that is true. But sometimes our mind hits blocks that are difficult to tackle from the mind alone. And at that point, it is really helpful to understand that mind-body connection so the body can kind of help a little bit as well. I'll give you a simple example. There's this term these days called hangry. Yeah, we get hungry and then we get angry. Now, Ayurveda recognizes these both are related to pitta. So we get hungry, our pitta goes up, we get angry. Now, for somebody who doesn't know this, they might think, I'm angry. I should stop being angry. And they can tell themselves, don't be angry, don't be angry. Once you understand this is connected to being hungry, and you can just eat something. That is a much easier way to get rid of your anger. Now, when we look at habit change, there's a number of negative or challenging emotions that people experience. And all of them have that mind-body connection where we can also tackle it from the level of the body with deep knowledge of Ayurveda. Examples of this are procrastination, comes up a lot, perfectionism, overwhelm, anxiety, etc. Yeah? So we'll go deeply in the program in terms of helping you identify what your core mind-body type is. People are born with like a natural mind-body type. And then there can be imbalances on top of this. And so during the 10 weeks, we'll explain all of this in great detail. And all the different dimensions, all those hacks and tips, a lot of them we will go in detail and say, well, if you are more Vata, because it's Vata, Pitta, and Kapha is the 3 mind-body types in Ayurveda. So for each of these hacks, we'll say, if you are more Vata, then you probably want to implement this like this. But if you're more Pitta or Kapha, then you want to do a different implementation because these different mind-body types really need completely different things. And I wanted to take you through one example, just so you have a sense. This is from our workshop 1, where we take the high-level habit change strategies that are recommended for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So you see on the left, you see the 3 symbols. The first one stands for Vata. And Vata, Vatas have characteristics that, and we explain in the course, Vata is more wind and Akasha. I won't go into too much detail because we're limited time, but as you are a knowledgeable audience, I assume you know the basics of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. But so Vatas are quick to learn, they love change, and they are typically quite creative and enthusiastic. Now, what does that mean for habit change? Things to focus on for Vatas is regularity. Whatever change you want to make in your life, make sure it doesn't decrease the regularity of your routine, or if possible, even increase it, because regularity is one of the big balancing factors for Vatas. Then, because Vatas love change, their mind can be quite quick to move. And so it is possible that they have one intention, but then they get distracted with something else. So one of the very practical tips for habit change for Vatas is having cues, visual things in your environment that remind you about the habit you wanted to change. This could be, I want to exercise, I'm going to put my gym shoes out the day before. Right? So the morning I wake up, I see my shoes and I remember that I was supposed to exercise, things like that. The other thing for Vatas, a big tip is to keep it simple. Vatas can get very excited and try to do many things at the same time. That is actually not so conducive. It is easier to change habits one at a time. So trying to keep it simple is an important tip for Vata. And then the biggest challenge people with Vata or too much Vata experience is overwhelm. That they start with a lot of enthusiasm and want to do a lot, and then a week later they're overwhelmed and it's hard to keep it all up. Okay, so then we work with you on specific strategies to overcome these obstacles. Then let's look at Pitta. Pitta is fire, of course, and a little bit of water. Pittas naturally are very purposeful and very competitive, in a good way, hopefully, if they're imbalanced. They're also very goal-oriented and they're dynamic achievers. Now, on a high level, Keith Wallace will tell you, every habit change book that is out there in the market is written by Pittas for Pittas. People that can take a goal and just execute it. So Pittas actually have the easiest time to start with habit change because they are naturally want to achieve their goals. Tips for Pittas is make sure whatever habit you try to bring, it does not interfere with your meals. Pittas should never skip meals because of that hunger we just talked about. Then if Pittas get bored, one option is to create a challenge, a friendly competition, because they really get driven by that, and it can be a very positive motivator. The other thing for Pittas is to make sure you schedule downtime. because the biggest challenge is that they get very perfectionistic, or they can, especially if their pitta is out of balance, they can get perfectionistic and want to do too much and then get physically exhausted. So pitta is also what we see and what Keith Wallace has seen for these years. He's been working with Ayurveda and habit changes. Pittas also have a fairly easy time to start habit change, but if they overdo it, then they just get physically sick or tired, and then it can be hard to maintain their habit. And then last but not least, we have kapha. Kapha is water and earth in the Ayurvedic system. Kaphas are generally stable and relaxed. They are very good-natured, and they benefit a lot from social support. Now, all the body types benefit from social support, but kapha in specific, this is a very important point for them. So tips for habit change for kaphas. One is, if it's at all possible, to get exercise in the morning for you during kapha time, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., because that gets the kapha moving, and that makes everything else easier. The second thing is to take baby steps. So while we said for vata and pitta, habit change can be easier at the start and harder to continue, kapha is the exact opposite. It is harder to start because they like stability. They do not like change by nature. So it's harder to start, but once they're going, it is easier to keep going. So you start to get a feeling why you need completely different strategies for these different mind-body types. So getting baby steps, not try to take too much because already it's hard to get going typically for kaphas, and then get that social support flowing for you. And the biggest challenge for kaphas when they get out of balance is procrastination. So that gives you an idea, hopefully, of how we apply every aspect of habit change. We look at it through the lens of Ayurveda and how these different mind-body types really need different approaches.
A Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who came from the ancient Vedic tradition and who was a physicist by training, had a saying. It's been said a couple times in a few different ways. What you put your attention on grows. So I want to invite you now, all here in this moment, to share in the chat, or if you'd prefer, a pen and a paper. We are going to just give you a moment for a little bit of the self-reflection that we do in our workshops, as putting our attention, our beautiful consciousness on anything is so powerful. So here in this moment, Dr. Nader invited us earlier to consider this. What is it? What's the habit you'd like to change or establish? So what habit would you right now like to establish or eliminate? Now think about this. What impact might it have on your life to make this change of some kind? So just give you a few moments to think that through for yourself. Put it in the chat, share here, or write it next to you on a piece of paper. And in addition to this habit you want to establish or eliminate, consider for a moment what's been keeping you from making this change. It's really quite remarkable when we create a little space just to use the beautiful power of the intellect to deeply look within and consider, what is it that's kind of been a barrier for me? And what is it that I'd really like to do? So now that we have a clear intention of the habit you'd like to establish or eliminate, let's dive into some habit hacks, as we call them. They're really strategies for things that you can apply immediately to help you change your habits. Now, we've just identified 3 here that we're going to share today. We share many, many in our program. Dr. Nader earlier has shared some, and we'll just center on these 3. And you'll notice there are themes that are consistent So if something sounds like something you've heard before, that's good news. We want to continue to anchor that in your consciousness. So our first hack, Miriam will share with us.
Great. Yes, the first hack is using an identity-based approach, and Dr. Nader already hinted at that in his talk. So to explain this a little more deeply, instead of thinking about what you want to do, think about who you want to become. Because the clearer you are about why you want to change a habit, the easier it is to actually make that change. And I'll give you a personal example. I used to think, I should exercise more. My doctor tells me, I read all about it, but it felt like something somebody else wanted me to do, and I really didn't want to. Now, that is not a good foundation for habit change. So then at some point, I thought about it deeply, and I said, well, why is it that I feel I should exercise? And I was just giving myself some time and letting my attention do the work. And what I came up with, or what I came at, was I would love to meet my great-grandchildren someday. Somehow that was a very deeply inspiring thought. And I swim, I love swimming. So now every lap I swim, I feel like it's one lap closer to meeting my great-grandchildren. And just that change in my own consciousness and my own awareness has been a very big unlock for me. Now that's personal to me, so I advise you to look inside yourself deeply about what is it that really drives you, what is it you really want in life, and how is this particular habit going to help you with that?
A second hack or strategy is to become aware of your habit loop. Now, all habits consist of a habit loop, which has 3 parts. And I'll put that in the chat for you. It is first a cue, so the trigger that kicks off the actual behavior. And there's real value in seeing what is it that I do that kicks off this particular behavior. And the next part, the second part, is the routine. I kick off this behavior and I do this on some regular basis. And the third part is the reward. So the habit loop, the cue, the routine, and the reward. And you can think of it in terms of something very easy. For instance, we all likely have the habit of brushing our teeth each morning. So what is it? Identifying these 3 components of what's that current habit? What is involved in that? Where is my cue? Is it that I wake up and it's the first thing I do, right? Is it, there's that daily practice of it, maybe twice daily, hopefully twice daily. And then there's some sort of reward. It could be just the satisfaction of knowing that I've done this good, healthy thing in my life. But identifying these 3 components of the cue, the trigger, the routine, and the reward is crucial. If you want to modify behavior, you start by recognizing the triggers that prompt the behavior that you want to change, noticing the actions that are involved, and identifying what rewards, maybe even deeper rewards that you hadn't thought about before, are there that reinforce that behavior. This self-awareness lays the foundation for truly intentional living and success with habit change.
Great. And then number 3 is shifting from survival consciousness to growth consciousness, or from a survival mindset to a growth mindset. Now, when we say survival consciousness or survival mindset, this refers to fight or flight. When we get stressed, we go into fight or flight, and at that point, we start responding instinctively, defensively, and the part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, the smart part of our brain, that is also where our impulse control resides. And when we go into fight or flight, that does not get blood flow. So per definition, when we are in fight or flight, controlling our impulses and not eating that piece of chocolate cake we were talking about this morning is hard. And so the first thing to do is to try to get out of this fight or flight and shift, as we said, from survival consciousness to growth consciousness. And then how do we do that? Of course, transcendental meditation is a wonderful strategy. There's also other things you can do. Maybe in the moment you're having a tough discussion with your boss, you can't just go sit down and close your eyes. So there's things like take a deep breath as a strategy. Many people advise to just calm your nervous system straight away. There's also some mental processes that are really helpful. One of those strategies is called shift into learning. So thinking if something really tough happens to you, think about what can I learn from this? Because then instead of things happening to you, things start happening for you. And that can also help to just take a little distance and get out of that fight or flight that makes habit change really, really hard.
So let's just take a moment, just a minute to process. And I'm just curious if you would put in the chat which of these 3 hacks, and I believe our beautiful tech support, yes, thank you, Jalal, has put that in the chat, just the reminder of the 3 hacks that we just covered. And the question being, which of these 3, as you think about the habit that you wanted to change, that you identified, something you want to eliminate or add into your life, which of these 3 hacks do you feel right away, just hearing about them, might be most useful to you? I'll just give you a moment to populate the chat. I already see Timo, thank you. I see a lot on 1, which is use an identity-based approach. And number 3, shift, right, into a growth mindset. That is such a powerful strategy for really bringing more joy into your life too. When we shift into learning, it's so powerful. And there ends up being something that feels more like a gift, even in a challenge. I call it the gift in the garbage sometimes when we shift into learning if we're in a deep challenge, but it does allow us to uncover, to unearth something that's quite beautiful, that can be uplifting even in struggle. So excellent, wonderful. And I think if we did a poll, becoming aware of your habit loop was probably so far in the chat the lowest. Lots of number 3s and number 1s. Interesting. Terry's a number 2. Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. Go through the learning process. Yes, you're getting the idea. That's exactly what we are really doing in our program and then here live with you. So wonderful. All right, so we will just move forward a little bit to share a little bit more about the program itself. When we designed the Super Habits program, we had 3 particular goals in mind. First, create a foundation for fundamental transformation in 10 weeks to provide you with a habit change toolkit for future use and to help you or any participants who join us to create super friends, as we call them. It's a community of support, of like-minded folks who are really looking at how can I make my life even better? How can I improve things through habit change? And what we found in this program, which is so heartwarming and gratifying, is that we asked people for their feedback after the 10 weeks. And we learned that 94% of participants in our program said that they made significant progress with their habit. 95% said that they would recommend the program to others. Some of the beautiful things that participants say about this program is they call it inspirational, life-changing, uplifting, and powerful. Someone even said that this course has been like a key that unlocked the door to rediscovering myself. It gets my highest recommendation. And a recent graduate from our 10-week program was so moved by her experience and her results that we thought we'd share a little video. It's like 2 or 3 minutes, but just to have her share directly from her experience. And tech support will play that for us, please. Seema Katsup is here with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Seema. So appreciate you being here. And we thought we'd ask Seema just to share a little bit about her recent experience. She just completed the 10-week program.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Miriam. Yes, I really want to just share 3 things. The first is it really works. I came to the program wanting to start exercising, and I'd been trying to do that for 20 years. So I got gym memberships, I bought treadmills, all the programs that you subscribe to, various programs. But I think what was missing for me was the how to take this desire and make it into a habit, something that I would do every day. And it's, I think, 2 months after the program, and I'm sticking to it. So I'm exercising daily. So it works. Second is I was surprised to discover how easy it was. I thought it was going to be really hard. When you think of habit change, that's kind of what we are conditioned to think. But I think the 10-week program, I felt it kind of anticipated all the roadblocks and challenges I would face. So every week I would discover a tool that I could put in my toolkit. So lack of motivation. What if you're sick or on vacation? How do you still stick to the program? So each week there was useful tips and hacks that I was able to use and keep to my habit change. And 3, it's that format that Heather mentioned of the buddy system, because it really takes a little support. You're not doing this alone. So we were partnered up, and my partner really it's what you make of it. So I call her my deal friend. So we would call each other not to check on, how are the kids doing or whatever, but did you go for your walk today? She was my accountability partner. So I was telling the team that I can lie to myself, but I couldn't lie to my accountability partner. So that kind of format and the friendship really helped for us to stick to the program. And the 10 weeks was the right time for us to experiment, fail, and then succeed. So those were my takeaways, and I'm still exercising, and this program really works. I highly recommend it.
Thank you. And Seema is an example of somebody who was a non-meditator when she started. So the response from people in terms of the success of their habit change, taking all this knowledge of consciousness, it also works for people that don't meditate yet, and then they become quite inspired to learn after. Great, then let's look very practically, last few slides, and then we'll take a break and open it up for questions. How does the program really work? So it's done online, live on Zoom, like for many of you experiencing this here today. It's interactive workshops, and so it's 10 weeks in a row, about 1 hour per week. Then, as we said, you get an accountability partner, you choose one or we give you one. And we have these learning circles during each workshops. There's breakout groups where you go in small groups to apply what you've just learned to your life. And then for the whole 10 weeks, you also have access to a WhatsApp group with your cohort, everybody going through your program and the experts. So whatever comes up during the week, whatever questions, you can ask the experts, and also you get to celebrate successes or share challenges and find, get tips from each other and support from each other. And this is a big part of what really builds this community, this feeling of family over 10 weeks. Then the cost of the program is $449 US, and we have a special promotion, if you will, for Guru Purnima. So if you put this coupon code GP for Guru Purnima 100, you will get $100 off, and that runs all the way till July 26th, so till Friday, midnight Hawaii time, I have to add for all our international audience. And then our next program is starting Wednesday, October 2nd, and it will run on every Wednesday for 10 weeks. And you have 2 time options. One option is 2 p.m. Eastern time in the US, 8 p.m. Central European time. So that's our option for the US and Europe kind of parts of the world, Africa included. And then our second option is in the evening in the US, so 9 p.m. Eastern. And that then allows our whole Asia Pacific region to join. So for example, it's 9 a.m. in Singapore, it's 11 a.m. Eastern Australia, it's 1 p.m. New Zealand, etc. And so you can just go to this link, superhabits.com, hashtag Bush Book Program. Our tech team will put it in the chat for you. For everybody else, you can just go to superhabits.com if you're in the audience here, or you can scan the QR code on the poster. And on superhabits.com, you'll see at the bottom, there's all these options you can sign up for. So we hope you found that inspiring. We wanted to ask you to write in the chat what your biggest takeaway was. And for everybody in the audience, you can just write it down for yourself. Take a second. What was the biggest thing you learned today? We hope everybody learned something that will help. And after that, I think Anna Mareka is going to announce our break, and then we'll come back for questions and answers. Yeah?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, dear Miriam and Heather, for this inspiring and very engaging presentation on the Super Habits program. And for those, you can enjoy probably the comments in the chat, exchange your takeaways, and we'll here take a break now for 5 minutes before we will dive into an interactive Q&A session with Dr. Tony Nader, joined by Dr. Keith Wallace, who will be joining us, Miriam Lodge, and Heather Evans. So we'll see you all in 5 minutes. begin and connect with our online audience. Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive into our live Q&A session, we have some beautiful insights on the Consciousness Advisor program and its application by one of our international leaders, Dr. Lila Maria Hartmann-Stein, who has been working closely with Maharishi and Maharaja on various projects. A little background to Dr. Lila Maria Hartmann-Stein. She grew up around Maharishi, witnessing his global planning throughout her life. She has a PhD in Maharishi Vedic Science from Maharishi European Research University and is an expert in Maharishi Vastu. She is also an international administrator for the TM organizations in several countries, including Germany, and a teacher of Transcendental Meditation, its advanced techniques, and the TMC program. So welcome, Dr. Hartmann-Stein.
Thank you, Anna Mareike. It's a great joy to be here, everyone. And you just mentioned I've witnessed many planning sessions with Maharishi also, and this included witnessing Maharishi design short courses for the general public, like on diet, digestion, nutrition, health programs, Maharishi Yoga, that were literally targeted at the public, means everyone, not just those who are practicing Transcendental Meditation. And when we built Maharishi Peace Palace, we could say Peace Palace, technical term, our home, all peace creating constant programs. You could take a girlfriend for an Ayurvedic consultation, or where nearby companies could give as a Christmas gift Maharishi light therapy with gem treatments, and anything you could have a full implementation of these consciousness-based programs. And every drill down, sometimes we ask, if we build such a center for consciousness-based programs of all Maharishi programs from the Vedic tradition, how do we train those wonder centers who offer all this program? I say that we didn't really have an answer, but now I couldn't help saying here, with my thoughts that in this Consciousness Advisor program, this is exactly answer to those questions of having not just all the knowledge for all fields of life from the field of consciousness, also architecture, how to buildings resonate the structure of consciousness, and thereby make us feel comfortable and successful in life. From any angle, we have this that has been a little bit scattered with different experts, with the different departments and the different fields. And now you don't even need a specific place. We have home for all of those programs in the Consciousness Advisor. And even with the brilliant